has been a wonderful, wonderful morning. First of all, my compliments to Flo and young Flo. And how do you give a lecture to so many elegant ladies and concentrate on your work? I'll try. And I'm also happy you've got a sprinkling of the other gender. This is your token men. And the other thing I should say to you guys is, you don't say we are equal, say we are better, which is true. Because I believe, no, I'll tell you why. I don't think any man could do the things or multitasking that a woman can do. You bring up your home, children, and then you have to actually keep up with men, like Menika was saying, who are very busy doing what they are doing, I won't mention. But at the same time, you still keep your sanity, which is great. So my compliments to all of you. Okay, today the topic was women and community wellness, but that I thought was too boring, so I thought I'll do heart to heart. And just maybe share with you some of the things that you can carry home to your families and things like that in awareness to how to stay healthy. I'll rush through some of the things and I'll stop where it's necessary for you to know. So we know that worldwide, 50% of deaths will be related to heart or cardiovascular diseases. India is a major disaster because we are the capital of heart disease, and not only that, we are the capital of diabetes. Now, if you look at this slide, in 1995, we had almost 20 million people who had diabetes, and we predicted at that time that by 2025, it will be 57 million or 58 million. Today, which is halfway, we are 70 million Indians have diabetes. So this is something that I want to burn in your head. And there are 70 million people who are pre-diabetics. So we need to really, we are working very, very intensely on a program to see how we can prevent the pre-diabetics from becoming diabetics. So, but between the two of them, if you have both, you are in serious trouble, because I'll go over it for you. So this slide is the most important one from your own family or your own knowledge. So what it says is that there are some things, the first two things on your left, the two circles, age, family, history, is that something you can't do anything about. So where you're born and how old you are, no control. But awareness about what your family history is and your gender vulnerability is very important. So if in your family there is incidence of heart disease, parents directly or their brothers and sisters or grandparents, if they have heart disease, then the children will have double the chance. That means today in India we estimate that about 12% of the people in India will develop heart disease. So if you have heart disease in your family, there's a 25% chance that the children will be vulnerable to heart disease. It's a very important factor to know. Second, women are protected from heart disease till the age of menopause because of their hormones. The estrogen protects them from blockages developing in their arteries. But as soon as they become menopausal, the whole scenario changes. So by 65, men and women will have the same incidence of heart disease, whereas before the age of 50, for every 10 men, there will be one woman who will develop heart disease. So these are things that your vulnerability starts at 45 to 50 when women reach menopausal age. The second thing is, if your parents or again your family has history of diabetes or your grandparents, if one parent has diabetes, then there is a 25% chance that the children will get diabetes. And if both of them, God forbid, have diabetes, then there's a 50% chance that the children will get diabetes. So this is just for awareness. Doesn't mean that you can actually let it progress. Which is amazing is today in my own life, I came back to India about 28 years ago. I've operated on grandfathers, fathers and sons now. And we warned them 20 years ago that, you know, this is in your family, so please be careful. Doesn't matter. I mean, they will go on with their life the way it is. So that's something that if we deal with it intelligently, we will be able to make a difference. If we don't, then there is not enough money in the entire country to treat everybody who's going to develop diabetes or heart disease. So much for that. Then you go down further from left to right. There are things that you can be aware of which are born in you, like high blood pressure. You may have a tendency, again familial tendencies are there. Second, diabetes I told you about. Third, your lipids, that is the cholesterol levels in your body, how your body actually deals with the intake of fat that you take. Every individual will have a different metabolic rate, and the way it is transformed will depend on an individual. So if you are aware of these three things, as I said, you can alter them. Diabetes, you can either control or you can actually cure by many things that you can do, which we won't get into details today. But high blood pressure, definitely you can do many things, and also medicines can control it. Now, deranged blood lipids are basically dependent upon your diet, your exercise level, and the tendency in genetic tendency. So between the three, we should be able to manage it. And there is enough science today that we can even do it with minimum of drugs or no drugs. Then smoking, of course, is a no-no, tobacco in any form. And then, of course, the other things that are environmental, which may influence you. So we talk about psychological stress. Stress is everywhere, we know that. And like I said, you cannot eliminate stress, but you can learn how to deal with it. And we talk about it later. Obesity, I'll tell you about, and physical inactivity, we all know about, because that's the biggest danger that India is facing, that automation has taken place, but we haven't adopted our bodies to the new realities. That means that you need exercise, you need to replace what you were doing before, you need to replace it with sustained exercise at least 4 to 5 times a week. But there is a mistaken entity that playing golf or going out shopping is exercise, which it's not. The reason being that if you are stop and go, then it's not exercise. If you sustain it, and if you decide you're going to a mall and you will not enter a shop for 45 minutes and you will walk around the mall briskly, you'll be okay. But do not think that going from one shop to the other is exercise. Okay, so this is something that I want you to be aware, especially the diabetes and heart disease in the family, because you can really make a difference. Also, you must understand that having a high cholesterol is not something to just talk about, because we know and documented over 40 years that the higher the level of cholesterol, the higher your danger. So there are many methodologies, and this is a separate subject, but I will try to simplify all this into what we call a metabolic syndrome. I did not want to put a female body here, but you can change the face in your mind. This is what the metabolic syndrome is. In the metabolic syndrome, if your waist size for men is over 102 centimeters, and for women it is 88, that is one strike. Blood pressure over 130 is the second strike. Fasting blood sugar over 100 is third strike. Triglycerides over 150 is another one risk factor, and HDL below 40 for men and below 50 for women is another risk factor. So if you have 3 out of the 5 risk factors, then your incidence of heart disease goes up double. So your vulnerability to heart disease becomes double. Now, men have just this one advantage over women, and that is when we put on weight, our pants become tight. Women have expandable wear. So you will not find out till it's too late. And once you put on weight, I know, and I'm sure all of you know how hard it is to take it off. So your dharma is that you must own a weighing machine. If you don't have it, buy yourself a present or have your spouse give you one. Second, choose the time every day where you will weigh yourself the same time with the same clothes or no clothes, so that you know what happened in the last 24 hours. And if you know that you put on 500 grams or a kilo or a pound yesterday, it's very easy to get rid of it today. But if you suddenly find out a week later that you put on 3-4 pounds because you were out to weddings and partying, which happens every day in our life, then you have lost the plot already. So, like I would do it, before I step into the shower, I will weigh myself every day. I'm not perfect, but at least I try to maintain what I can. So I think that's what I highly recommend to all of you. So let me just tell you what happens, what is heart disease. So naturally, this is a cut section of an artery. And believe it, the inner lining, which we have labeled as endothelium, is the smoothest surface you've ever seen in your life or felt in your life, because for all your life, 24/7, millions of liters of blood is going through these arteries without sticking to the walls. That's how smooth they are. But if you cut your finger, you know the moment the blood comes out, it starts clotting. So it is the smoothness of the surface that prevents it from getting clogged. What happens when you have excess of fat? That fat starts accumulating under the surface of the endothelium. So if you look at it here, these little blobs start accumulating inside the wall of the artery. You can see that there. Over a period of time, if you continue to have high cholesterol, then this bubble becomes bigger and we call it a plaque. And one day the plaque can rupture because there's enough pressure inside it, and then the blood will clot on top and a person will get a heart attack. This is exactly the mechanism it happens. It does not happen in one day. It takes years for this fat to build up. But that last moment is the culminating effect. So when you see in movies somebody's daughter ran away and they got a heart attack and died, it's not the fault of the daughter. That event was culminated by that shock, but it was the 20 years of build-up that patient had. So he was destined to die one of these days, so the girls should not have guilt of running away. Okay. So there are three ways you detect coronary artery disease. One is you don't have any symptoms, you go for a checkup, and we find out your risk factors the way I enumerated them, and we try to modify them. This is the best way of finding out that you have a tendency of getting coronary artery disease or you're already developing one, and we should try to reverse it from that point. The second is when you start getting chest pain every time you go for a brisk walk or after you eat and you go for a walk, you get chest pain, that's angina. So then if you go to the doctor, a proper doctor, and the tests show that you have developed coronary artery disease, you can still be okay. But the worst way to find out is that you missed the first two, and the third one is when you get a heart attack. Now the people who have diabetes, this is another point I want you to burn. If you have diabetes, you will not get chest pain. 99% of the time, the nerve endings of the heart that give you pain are dead because of diabetes. So if that happens, you will only find out, if you have not had a preventive checkup, you will only find out when either your heart has been damaged and it starts functioning at a fraction of what it should be functioning, or you get a heart attack, one of the two. So that's why I would warn people who have diabetes to be extra careful, because the consequences are huge. If we find out that somebody's got coronary artery disease in the first two circles, 99% of them in today's technology, they can be saved and they can live a healthy, fully working life as they would if they did not have heart disease. God forbid if they have had a heart attack, 20% will die, 10% before they reach the hospital, and 10% in the first year after the heart attack, no matter how well you're treated. So this is the 99 versus 80% factor. So what is briefly I'll tell you what are the things so that you are armed with today. In the papers you will read too many stents being put in, doctors doing unnecessary procedures. So I want to leave you with some sense of how to protect yourself from us. So this coronary artery angiography is the gold standard. So if we suspect that somebody really has heart disease or has had a heart attack, this is the way to find out. And when the doctor says you need an angiogram and you are very clear that you have angina, you've had a heart attack, or there is very high suspicion, then this is the test to do. This will give us four types of results. The upper left-hand side will show you that there is hardly anything, little bumps in there, but there is beginning of heart disease, then we can treat it medically very easily and even try to reverse it from that point. The upper right one will show you that there is a block you may not appreciate, I'll show you later. There is only one single block in the front of the artery, which becomes suitable for stenting so that it can be even almost cured with that. And then there are multiple blockages which are long, especially in diabetics, which are not suitable for stenting, will have to go for bypass. And then you don't want to reach the stage of the right bottom one, because that means that you have had coronary artery disease for so long, you never discovered it, but all the arteries have actually been so badly diseased that you can't even do anything to them. There are stem cell treatments and all that available, but I'll save that for another day. So this is the one that is suitable for angioplasty. What we do is we put a catheter across the fat deposition in the artery, blow up a balloon which is inside the metal scaffolding, remove the balloon, and this metal scaffolding stays inside, keeping the artery open. This is the principle of a stent. If stents are very useful, if the arteries are like blockages are short, not multiple, not in the beginning of the arteries, so you have to get a little, maybe a second opinion if you have the chance, that in case you have any doubts whether it's necessary or not. Then comes bypass, which has now come to a point where we can do surgery in elective cases with less than 0.5% death rate, and 99.5% will live a long time. And by innovating over the years, we have brought it down to surgery becoming from what we used to call stem to stern, huge incisions, we have brought them down to half the size. So early detection, what can we do to prevent people from getting full-blown disease? So we measure the thickness of the arteries inside that go to the brain, and we can tell whether somebody is developing coronary artery disease or not. So this is one test. CT angio is another very good test. If we have high suspicion of coronary artery disease, we can give a dye in the vein. So there are no catheters inside the body, and you can take a picture, and you'll get pictures like this. This one has no disease, but if you look at the next one, and there is an arrow which shows that there is a narrowing at a very critical plot. Okay. Now let's go. You can modify heart disease. This is for diet. I'm sure you've heard all this, but let me go. This is the important part. Now we are into saying what is wellness, what you talked about, as to understand the human body. It changes every decade. So now we have divided the health or human body by aging by decade. And if you go from left to right, the red one is when you're above 70, yellow is between 50 and 70, and green is 30 to 50. So what happens, which is the most important thing I want you to understand, is your muscle mass, which is the scaffold which keeps your body upright, which actually keeps you active and keeps you healthy, and is your immunity, is all muscle. So as you age, make sure you do not lose muscle, because then you would have had a major disadvantage to yourself, disease-wise, immunity-wise, and posture-wise. Then, of course, the bone density. Women are very, very prone to bone density loss. And I won't go through the rest of it, but I want to tell you about that how we can actually design a program. This is a robot we got, where we put the person who's undergoing the checkup inside it, and we measure every muscle group to say where is the weakness in a person's body and what exercises to give them to be able to keep their health and posture straight and not have back pain, hip pain, and lose their knee joints. So in other words, today we are saying, we save your joints, we save your posture, we save your liver, we save your kidneys, rather than saying we replace your kidneys. So that's very possible. And menopause does the following. I just want to show you how the estrogen and progesterone in your body actually goes down at the age of menopause, and at 50 is the cutoff point. You all are aware of all the symptoms that you can get, but most importantly is osteoporosis. Women become so vulnerable to breaking their bones that this is something that you must be careful about. Get a bone density, get the treatment for it if it is less, and keep it going every 2 to 3 years, get it checked up. So exercise, taking your osteoporosis because that helps with it. Diet, of course, I've told you about. Training, yoga is the best thing you can do for yourself throughout your life. And what it does is it stretches the ligaments, makes the bone strong, builds your muscle, and keeps you as healthy as you will ever be. I'm a real believer. So thank you for listening to me. Sorry, I overshot my time. I didn't know. But thankful. I learnt a lot. I'll tell you, I learnt more than I've said to you, because what Menaka was saying, that there is, all the programs, this is fantastic, and I really, whatever you girls are doing is also great. So cheers to all of you. Thank you very much. I've got to run.